I've never done this, but I want to lead us in a prayer before we start, if you'd be open to that.
Absolutely.
All right, sweet. God, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for this beautiful conversation that's about to be had. I pray that you just fill this room with your goodness and your love. And we pray that this conversation can transcend and really reach somebody who needs to hear it and help them tap into the frequency that you have put out into the world, and that they could take this and become a better version of themselves. And I pray that you just bless us with presence and just to be in this moment with each other. And we thank you for our health and that we're able to meet up here in person in Austin, Texas. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful.
You know, our mutual friend Dominic Schlueter did that on a podcast the first time, not the first, well, the only time that I was ever on his podcast. And to me, that was so powerful just because it puts you into this deeper state of presence. And, you know, for me, I put a lot of pressure on myself a lot on these podcasts as I don't know if you do, because I've heard you talk about, like, if you went into a podcast with like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, that you would be totally chill with it. But I think that's a good place to start is, you know, how do you remain so present in everything that you do? Because I've noticed that in the time that we've hung out and the Zeke dinner dates that we've had, or just the way that you present yourself at like Elle's walks, or when we're at the gym and somebody wants to have a conversation with you within your podcast, you can just see it when watching how dialed in you are. So first and foremost, how have you been able to really tap into the state of presence that you bring to everything in life?
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for saying all that. The presence comes from letting go of all of the clutter. There was so much clutter about what other people thought of me, of what my family wanted me to do, of what this person said in high school. When you remove all that, the only thing left is presence. The only thing left is love. The only thing left is I want this person to experience this moment as fully as it is. And if you have that, then everything works out. There's no issue with anything. And so I'm sure there are deeper layers of stuff for me to let go, but I've let go of a lot. And that letting go process has allowed me to be present and allowed me to be comfortable in whatever moment I'm in, because 32 billion years got us to this moment right here, right now. So of course it's right. Of course that's the place that your consciousness is being directed. Think about all the trillions of places you could be and your attention could be right now. It's like you could be staring at a sunset. You could be on a beach. You could literally be turning around and looking at that black wall. Wherever your consciousness is the most important thing. And so I just treat that as like it was given to me by God itself to give me the feeling of like this moment is special. And so that's where the presence comes from. Letting go and understanding the significance of the fact that your consciousness is directed towards that being. So let's do something with it. Let's make it something special.
What was Danny like in high school? As you just mentioned right there, just some high school gossip, right? Like just something along those lines, something that ate at each and every single one of us for the most part in some way, shape, or form. So for you, something, an area of your life I don't know much about is that time period of you in high school. So I'm interested to dive into what it was like for you then.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were a few different phases, a few different like chapters of my high school, like all of us, I'm sure, in very much finding yourself or understanding who you are. Like there was one phase, sophomore year of high school, where I started a New York Knicks blog. and I interviewed NBA players and got access to media day and was like written about in the New York Daily News and Newsday. And it was like, that was one phase. And then there was the phase of like, I want to be cool. I want to be popular. I don't care about writing for the Knicks. Like, that's cool, but I don't really want to do that. And so there was a phase of me partying and a phase of me trying to get acceptance and validation from my peers through drinking. And it's like all of that was like my high school experience. And I just I learned so much and I'm so grateful for it. I mean, one situation that stands out that I've talked about a lot before is senior year of high school, there was an account on Twitter 2011, 12, 13, something around there. There was an account that was tweeting gossip about everyone in the school. And everybody thought that it was me. Literally 1,500 people, it felt like, were convinced that I was the one talking poorly about everyone else.
Why did they think that?
Because they knew that I'd written on Twitter with the Knicks blog and there was funny humor and people were just like, oh, this is definitely Danny. And I was like, this is not me. Like, I know it. Like, obviously, I'm not the one writing this. But how do you prove that something's not you when everyone else thinks it is? You figure out who it actually is. And so I created this Excel sheet for myself of when the person was tweeting, what they were tweeting about, and who that could possibly be in the school. And I found out that this account was tweeting at the same exact time as someone from the school and about the same topics that person was interested in. And I was like, oh, it's this kid. I told the entire school, it's this kid. And the kid shoved me into a locker senior year of high school. And I had so much resentment and anger. And I started lifting weights because of this. And when I talk about letting go, it's crazy how it all ties together. In 2020, when I recognized it through meditation, through sitting with my thoughts, I said, oh, I don't have any resentment towards this kid. I see why he did that thing. I see why I did that. And it's all good. And I genuinely have love for that person. I genuinely can be at peace with whatever happened as the perfect thing that was needed for my evolution. And I let it go. And no surprise, in the next 2 months, I started the podcast, the thing that I love doing that is so important to me and freed me from so much. So it's not just that I let it go, it's that I got the benefit of presence when I did. And we all have these things. And it's easy to have these things. And it's like, but it's easy to push them down as well. But those things are blocking your heart. And what's blocking your heart is blocking your presence. And what's blocking the actual flow of life to run through you.
So would you say that moment right there kind of set you on your path and set you on this journey that you've been on for the past however many years?
I would say that that's one really important one. I would say the distinction that I make in the two phases of my life are 24, because at 24 years old, before 24 years old, I never meditated. After 24 years old, I did. And I can see so clearly my own self-awareness, my own ability to see myself, my own ability to look at what was around me and understand that, one, I was creating it, and two, it had nothing to do with me in the same breath. Like, I was creating the circumstances of my life, but also, like, I didn't have to get attached to them. I didn't have to get attached to my thoughts. I didn't have to get attached to the stories I was telling myself about why I was in this position or not. Like, so there was a heaviness that existed before meditating that disappeared after. And that the situation that I'm talking about was after a year of meditating and a year of going inward. And then those were 20-minute meditations for the first year. And then starting the second year was like, let me do a 60-minute meditation. What's that like? So that was the distinction that was really the start of the journey for me, was when I actually committed to meditating.
So you started in high school, you started meditating?
24 years old.
24 years old. Sorry.
No, you're good.
And what was the trigger for you to start meditating?
So my friend Tej Dosa, who you can find on Twitter at Comedic Bizman, he always tweeted about business, but he tweeted about it with love. And I saw that he was just like operating at a different frequency. I saw that, and I was curious about it. And I knew he had meditated for 10 years, but I was like, that probably won't work for me. Like, just sitting with your thoughts in a room. Like, that sounds so ridiculous, like, to the rational part of me. And I was like, within, that first 90 days of doing it, I started noticing these crazy synchronicities that were happening. Like, I wrote about one in a post where it's like, I'm on the phone with this guy, like this well-known person in the world. If I said the person, people would probably know who it is. And then the next day, I'm at a coffee shop, and this woman looks me in my eyes, starts a conversation with me, tells me I should go to her church. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then says the reason why you should go is because this guy came here yesterday or last week. And I was like, that guy that you're talking about is the guy that I was on the phone with yesterday. And like, what is going on? And I went from standing up, talking to her for 10 minutes to sitting down and being like, what is happening? And that was after I started meditating. And I'm doing 75 hard. As I'm doing 75 hard, I stumble across this personal training gym. And the guy, the owner of the personal training gym, is also doing 75 hard at the same time, when this is a program in 2019 that's relatively new. And so all these things are starting to happen. And I wasn't attributing the ability to notice that to meditation, which I would do today. But what really clicked for me was 90 days into it. I was driving a car for the first time. And as I'm driving the car for the first time in the 90-day period, I say to myself, I stop at a red light and I'm like, green, 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 make this light green. And I was like, started laughing at myself. Like, that was going on in my head. I was like, why am I wanting this light to be green when it's clearly red? Like, I am fighting with reality. And then I realized, oh, meditation really works.
And so why did you go from these 20-minute meditations to then, I know you've dabbled with like the 40 minutes and the 60 minutes. And so why did you then take that and continue to extend the duration you were doing it?
I think because it worked. Like, I was like, all right, 20 minutes works. Like, what would 60 minutes look like? And I got so much deeper, so much faster. And I immediately noticed the difference of like, oh, like 20 minutes was great. And also 60 minutes is even better for the depth of connection. And listen, people are at different stages of their life. So it's like, if you're starting working out, maybe it's helpful to do 20 minutes of push-ups rather than doing a 60-minute routine. So that's kind of how I look at it, and kind of what made me go deeper into it, because I saw it clearly worked.
When you're meditating, in my experience, I've always thought like, man, am I doing this wrong? Yeah. Is this like, how am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I would get like mad at myself if a thought would come into my head, and I would immediately be like, Dom, like, you idiot, like, be present, like, you're supposed to empty your mind, right? And I am just curious, like, when you have if you're in meditation and you have, say, a thought comes into mind, how do you recenter yourself? Or do you just accept what's coming to you and play with that in your head?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's both. It's like, there are moments for me of complete stillness where there's nothing in my head. Those are beautiful. But there's also moments of, wow, like, I should have said this on a podcast, or wow, this happened and I could have done this better, or I can't wait to see what happens in the future with this scenario. Like, all of that. Like, and none of it's wrong. And it's all right, and it's literally all as well. So I think just having the grace for myself of just like, when you're sitting there, I mean, it's like workouts, right? Like, there's some workouts where you're like, I just hit a PR, and I just hit a PR, and then there's some workouts where you're just showing up, and your head's in a different place, and you're on your phone, but you still got your workout in. And so that's kind of how I view meditation, with the aspect of the thoughts that are running. Like, the thoughts running in your head and you noticing them or not noticing them is all great. Like, you can't do meditation wrong. You're just sitting in a room by yourself. It's like taking a shower. Like, you can't take a shower wrong. It's just, this is intentional time to just be with yourself, because we know our attention is valuable. We know that there are corporations that want our attention. We know podcasts want our attention. We know there are posts and books and all the stuff that want our attention. And a lot of it is really good for us. If someone's listening to something like this, it's like, your attention is being placed in a valuable place, from my perspective, my biased viewpoint. But it's like, how what would happen if you placed that valuable attention on yourself? Like, we know when you go to the gym, you place valuable attention on yourself, your body grows. You get faster, you get stronger, whatever it is. You do the same thing for your mind. You get more at peace. There's nobody who meditates for 10 years and is not in a drastically different position in life by virtue of where they are with the voice in their head. Nobody. I I like go to the gym for 10 years and still be in bad shape. I don't, how does that even happen? It's impossible. So I thought about that with meditation, especially in the early days of like, I don't get it. Is this working? Is this not? Just do it for 10 years.
You have a really cool story about when you were, I believe, 15 and Gary V called your mom and told her to let you go to was event, a book signing or something of his, right? And so for you to be even 15 years old and watching Gary V and so you're 28, so it's like those like the earlier years of Gary V too. Have you always just had this like entrepreneurial drive, this feeling in your gut, this fire in your soul to create an impact in this world? Because there's some people who have that, and there's just who from a young age know that there's just something in them, and then there's other people who don't feel that. So have you been one of those people?
Yeah, dude. I mean, you talk about 15, like.
Bro, I was picking my nose and eating it.
No, I mean, at 13, I started a time management blog, and I wrote about Gary Vaynerchuk in 2009.
It's insane.
Or 2010, and it's like, maybe it's 2008.
That was like Wine Library
TV.
Yeah.
And see, like, this is like, I know that something was given to me in this lifetime to notice Gary Vaynerchuk in 2008 watching a Wine Library TV show. Like, what was I doing? What I was doing was I was noticing light, and I was seeing the love, and I was seeing his ability to be self-aware, but also to work hard and like have care for, like, I remember writing in that blog post, which I resurfaced later on December 4th, 2020 to get him onto my podcast. I remember thinking to myself, like, is this guy real? Like, is this guy actually feeling love? Like, is this guy actually, like, just wants the best for people? Like, if you read my blog post, you will see there's like a feeling of disbelief at his self-awareness, at his love, at his work ethic. The work ethic I could see, so I didn't really disbelieve that because he was posting 5 times a week, so once every day. But I disbelieved his just care for people because I didn't feel that myself, and I didn't know how to get there. And he didn't have the blueprint for how to get there because, by his words, and I believe him, he was born like that. And I learned when I started meditating, I was like, oh, I get it. I understand why Gary Vee is talking the way he does. I understand how he feels the love in his heart that I noticed at 13. It was that he was self-aware and he was able to look at his own thoughts and not be able to live in them. And he didn't need meditation for that. He just had that natural gift. So, yeah, I mean, I've always had something in me that sees the light in people and looks for the best in people, but also just like sees people who are doing life the way that inspires me.
There's this gap where you got shoved into a locker when you were 17, 18 years old. Yeah. And then when you started meditating at 24. So there's a 6-year gap in this 6-year period.
Yeah.
And I know you were living out in San Diego at the time when you were 24 out there.
Yeah.
What happened in those 6 years?
A lot of darkness. I'm really happy you asked that question. Darkness to me that I embrace today in a so much more loving way than I ever have in the past. Darkness meaning like decisions that I wouldn't make today. And that's okay because they help show me the places that I can help other people. So like I went off to college and my idea of success in college was drinking, partying, getting with girls. And I thought like that was the North Star. And I thought that was like how I would belong. That's how I'd feel cool. And if I look back on it now, I almost say to myself, wow, like I didn't belong with that kid shoving me into a locker. So like, was everything I was doing in the next 6 years of my life a way to compensate for that situation, a way to feel like I belonged, a way for me to find acceptance with others, through others. So it was just a lot of that behavior over and over and over again. I would like read a book, but then like regress back. And I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't know, and I didn't really have awareness a lot of the time as well. It was just a lot of unconscious behavior of drinking, and this is what college is supposed to be like, quote unquote. So like, this is what I saw in the movies growing up. So this is what I'm gonna do in college. And so that's that 6 year period was a lot of what I would call today unconscious behavior.
So did you let those drivers, like starting the blog, like starting the time management business, which actually was before the blog, but the time management business, the blog, I know you were into drop shipping, like a couple of these other businesses, like did you let that spirit, that spark in you die out a little bit before you ultimately ignited it when you were again 24?
Yeah, I think so. I think I suppressed the light to the best of my abilities. I I it obviously never died out fully because I'm here today and feeling amazing, and life is incredible, and the people around me, like yourself, incredible. And so that's just a virtue of me, or a reflection of me, like magnifying the light in myself, because the people around you in your life are just a reflection of how you're feeling about yourself. So no, I don't think I ever completely suppressed it, but or completely put it out, but it felt like it in moments. It felt like there were moments of grief, of shame, of just below truth, is how I would describe it. Absolutely.
Do you think that people who feel that, do you think it ever fully dies out, or does it just get darker and darker and darker, but there's always the ability to light it again, but you just have to go deeper and it's going to take more work to ignite that flame?
So my perspective on this is that we were born into this life with a particular consciousness. And some people's consciousness is at the place of anger. And if you're starting, like genuinely starting from life at the consciousness of anger, and like you came out of the womb an angry baby, or like just like an angry soul, like you, I don't know how, I know that you can increase your capacity and your consciousness, because that's really what we're talking about. Your ability to feel more love and empathy for others. But I've used to think like everyone could feel love, everyone could feel this way, everyone could feel amazing and I don't think that anymore. I don't think like I think people can work to get there, and I think it's a worthy pursuit to get there. And maybe if you meditate for 10 years and you start off as an angry person, like you can get there. But I also think like not everyone will. And that's okay too. So yeah, that's kind of like a sad realization in some sense, but also like a freeing realization of it's like it's not my job to like make sure everyone is full of light all the time. I'm gonna do everything I can to exist and embody that and help other people where I can, but I also can't quote unquote save everyone, or I can't help everyone like embody love in every moment. You know, what I'm going through right now is David Hawkins' work. Are you familiar with David Hawkins? Um, and so he puts all these emotions into a chart that it was really profound for me to see, because I could see my own consciousness, and I could see my own consciousness start out at certain points, and I could see it rise at certain points. And like, I feel so blessed to be in this mind and body, but I don't know if everyone is capable of experiencing what I experience.
Yeah, here's something I struggle with. And, I grew up in the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
and when I got to college, I stepped away from it because I was, again, kind of fell into the same thing as you: status, partying, chasing girls, climbing the social ladder, all the things, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, I can do this life thing on my own. And, that led into some of the darkest days of my life. Was my like junior year of college, which is when I inevitably started the podcast during COVID.
Yeah.
Darkness leads to light.
Yeah.
But I had this conversation with Noah recently too, and I was just like, we were watching Harry Potter at his house, and I was walking down the hallway in his apartment, and I immediately turned around. Like, I didn't even think about it. Like, my body just turned around, and I started walking back to his apartment. I knocked on the door. I was like, yo, what are you doing? He just left, and I was like, I gotta ask you this. And it's been something I'm wrestling with, and it is like, if we were all created in the image and likeness of God, why do so many people struggle to find purpose, struggle to find meaning, struggle to find fulfillment? And why are there so few that can transcend humanity? Really, like, the Martin Luther Kings, like the John F. Kennedys, like the Malcolm X's, like all these incredible figures, like, and even people like you and I who have had the courage to contribute something small in the content that we create, and be just on this pursuit, and know that there is better for us, and we can continue to elevate ourselves. Why do most people never tap into that?
I would say a couple of things. You could take the argument of their consciousness is less developed, or you could take the argument of they're not letting go. They're not letting go of the story of the kid pushing them into the locker. As soon as you let that go, so much opens up. Like, genuinely opens up. I know it because I saw it in my own life. And it's like, where do you get upset? Like, if you look in your life, even today, of like, what's the last time you got really angry about something? What's the last time that's not to say anger is a bad emotion, but when's the last time you closed off your heart? Look at that. Every time you close off your heart is a gift, because you can see where you are not free. And I think some people have a greater propensity to look at those places and want to be free. And I don't know if that want to be free is a choice or not. Whereas I think like maybe 5 years ago I would have said, or 3 years ago I would have said it's a choice. Like, everyone can choose to be more free. Everyone can choose to let go. But what if it's not? What if it's like that's just how you're born? So that's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, and that's beautifully said, and I agree with you in a lot of ways there. I think about somebody who was born in a less fortunate situation than us, right?
Yeah.
We literally hit the lottery in our upbringings, and Gary Vee talks about this 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born.
Yes.
Let alone being born in the United States to a middle income family where you have the opportunity to get an education, and like you have the love of your family members and friends and family. It's like, why do we have so much yet feel so empty?
I mean, who's the we in this situation? Is the we you?
I've been that way.
Yeah.
I don't feel that anymore. There are certainly days where I catch myself, and we talk about elevating our states of consciousness. I feel like I've been able to elevate my state of consciousness over the years, whereas I'm able to ask myself why I'm feeling this way at certain times, and then bring it back to reality of, oh, well, I have this. I have this. I have this. Like, what am I really stressing over? Or why do I feel this feeling of anxiety or depression or fear or doubt or worry? And so I've certainly been that person, but now that I have this deeper understanding, and like sense of gratitude for my life, my one of my missions is like something I think about often is like, how can I help other people
Sure.
feel this way?
Yeah.
And that's where I have to check myself and lead from a place of compassion and empathy, and recognize like, hey, I was once in this spot, and it's a journey to get there, and I can't come from a place of judgment. So one thing that I'm really trying to do this year is come from a place of compassion and empathy, and see, okay, well, this person feels this. How can I help them elevate that state of consciousness?
Yeah, and I think it starts with yourself. I think it goes, where am I judging myself? Right? And it's like, it's interesting what you said, because you were like, when I feel the fear or the anxiety, I immediately go to, what am I grateful for? And that's a really interesting practice, because in some sense, you're you're not tackling the fear and anxiety. You're just going like, all right, so we got the fear here, but like, I should be grateful, so I'm over here. But it's like, what's happening over here? What are we not feeling that is causing us fear?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you could like lose a game and then be like, well, I'm so grateful for life for having the ability to play, but at the same time, you're not understanding why you're upset about losing that game. What does it actually mean? And sitting with that, that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying letting, like truly letting go, because it's it feels like it could be painful, but that's actually where you transcend.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Do you think letting go is something that you feel immediately, or over time you're just like, oh, I've detached from this thing?
I think that letting go is something that happens. Um, it's dependent on how aware you are. So, like, it's possible for in this moment for um, you to say something that offends me, and for me to be like, that's all good. But that's because I've been letting go for the past 4 years. And that thing that you would say that would offend me would take me a week or a month or a year or 6 years for me to actually let go. Right? So I think that, you know, letting go, how fast you let go is based on your level of consciousness and your ability to let go in the past. And I think how quickly you can let something go is related to how good of a life you're living, because life is moving. It's your judgments of it and your perspectives of it and your clinging to it that is causing suffering in a really big way.
What did it feel like to let go of that experience of when you were in high school?
Dude, someone asked me this yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, I could give you a eloquent answer about what it felt like and the transcendence and just, I don't remember. It was now 3 years ago, 2020. So yeah, almost, yeah, 3.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago, something like that. I don't remember what it felt like in the moment. I just knew like there was just more joy. There was more openness. There was more like, and I just laughed because I didn't even realize it was there.
Mm.
But when I did the 60-minute meditation, I was like, that's still in my head. Like whatever is still in your head is the thing that you haven't let go. That is like from a long time ago. It's like your consciousness is still there. It's like, yeah, I think so much of our life is dictated by those things, and we don't realize it, and we haven't investigated them. And if you really do, and you have the courage to, life becomes a lot sweeter because you're stopped resisting the flow of what is happening.
So you've talked about letting go of different experiences like that. I think there's other things that we also need to let go of in order to transcend, in order to elevate our state of consciousness and like amplify our human condition.
Yeah.
And I think those things are letting go of people. I think they're letting go of different habits and things like that that aren't serving the person that you're becoming.
Mm-hmm.
they might be serving the person that you are, but they're not serving the person you're becoming. And I think that's an important distinction there. What are some of the things that you've had to let go of? Maybe their experiences, but maybe their insecurities, maybe their people. What are some of the things that you've had to let go of?
Yeah. So one thing that was interesting for me to let go of, I mean, there's so many. Like,
Yeah.
my life is an unfoldment of letting go to feel free.
Sure.
Um, the first thing that came to mind was letting go of living in New York. I grew up in New York. All my family's in New York, and I spent 2 years there or 3 years there after COVID, and I was like, I have to like let go of this idea that I need to be there because my parents are there or because my grandparents are, because my family, because my friends. Like that has nothing to do with me. Um, and like truly sitting with that of like, it's okay to want a better life. It's okay to go where your energy feels most aligned. Like that's okay. So let that go. I think about like girlfriends, ex-girlfriends letting go. Um, I think about, but so much of this is a reflection of the thoughts first. Like, I there was a situation like even it's a never-ending process. Maybe a month ago or a month and a half ago, I I said to myself, I was seeing this girl for a little bit and I was like, I don't think this is in alignment, you know? I really don't feel in my heart that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I swear on my life, I said to myself, like, I let this situation go and my friend helped me realize like how I was living in scarcity because of this situation. And I was like, I let it go. Like I don't want this anymore and I know this isn't for me. Girl calls me 2 days later and is like, hey, I don't think this is gonna work out. And I was like, it's so funny you said that because I literally had that same realization 2 days ago. And so which one caused which one, right? And that situation was a lot freer for me by virtue of the fact that I was able to say, I'm done with this because I feel like I'm coming from a place that is not truth, that is coming from scarcity, that's coming from just a feeling of like this girl's really attractive and like so to me it's it's such a cool process to witness it happen in your mind and then happen in reality and it's like which happened first. So
Is there anything that you feel like you're working to let go of right now?
I would say old beliefs around money. You know, I grew up in a wealthy family, from a wealthy family, and that was something I was really insecure about for a long time. That was like, I would say, like, oh, I'm upper middle class, but like, my family is wealthy. Like, my dad, my mom, my grandpa, like, my grandma, like, they all did well for themselves. And I had a feeling of like, well, if they did well for themselves, then like any success that I have is going to be just like tampered down. People are going to be like, who cares that this guy made money or did the success or had this thing because his parents were wealthy? So it's meaningless. And I was able to let go of that idea, that insecurity. And I'm working through that right now. And how do I know I'm working through it? Because I'm not wealthy. So it's like life will show you. Um, like what you believe about yourself is a reflection of your circumstances. And life is showing you the truth of what you believe in all moments. So, yeah, I think that that's one thing that I'm working through right now, and that's one thing that I'm making great progress on, but I'm really excited to see how that unfolds by virtue of letting that belief go.
What have you been doing to let go of it?
So I'm listening to Prosperity Consciousness right now. This is an audiobook that's phenomenal. I've listened to it now twice.
Mm.
Um, and I'm tracking my finances every day. And
Every day. Wow.
yeah, I got that from Alex Hormozi. He's like, go to your bank account and like if you have multiple bank accounts, just put it in a spreadsheet and just write it down every day so you get conscious of the flow of money.
Mm.
And so I really like that idea. And I took it from him and I started doing that. Um, and I launched a coaching offer recently. Like I was like, I can't I can't offer coaching. Like, who am I to offer coaching? Like, I don't like some of the coaches out there. Like, that seems like a scammy thing. And I was like, I'm literally coaching people every day. Like, people come to me about their problems with their relationships, about their situations with their significant others and their friends and all this stuff, and I'm helping them. Like, they are genuinely in a different state after talking to me. So therefore, I'm qualified to get paid for this because I am getting paid in service of their friendship, right? So, I mean, also another thing from prosperity consciousness is that there's this idea that you've heard the phrase of like, don't take things from strangers, right? You've also heard the phrase of don't take money from friends, right? You've heard both of those things. You're nodding your head. So somewhere in your closet of your mind, you know, okay, I don't take things, which could be money. I don't take money from strangers, and I don't take money from friends. So like, how are you making money? You're making money from people who aren't strangers and who aren't friends. And it's like, where did those beliefs come from? Those beliefs came from people who said them, and that we accepted them as true. Mm. And so prosperity consciousness is helping me see all the beliefs that I have around money and how a lot of them are false.
And money, I love that you bring this up because I'm letting go of the same thing.
Let's go.
And
we're very much mirrors of each other. I don't know if you could tell in our journeys how we've approached things.
It's because we're both Italian, right?
Must be it.
Must be it. No, I totally feel that, and I felt this connection to you from the time even before we had met. When I got to Austin, within probably a week of being here, I was told like probably 14 times, you need to meet Danny Miranda. Like, it was every single day, multiple times a day, everybody I met, like, they were like, do you know Danny Miranda? And I was like, not yet. I was like, not yet.
But and on that point, to cut you off, it's like, life will present you with what you need to do. Like, I genuinely believe that. You will get signs. If you hear something twice or 3 times, read that book. Mm-hmm. Follow that into it because there is something guiding that's greater.
Yes.
And so, you can...
No, it's all good. I love that. We'll definitely jump back to that.
Yeah.
To the money thing.
Yeah.
Money is just an exchange of value.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most profound things that I've ever heard and completely changed you can watch all the money mindset videos and books and all those things, but for me that just clicked. And so when I hear you say that, it's like, yeah, no shit. Like, if Danny's providing me a ton of value, why wouldn't I pay for his services?
Yeah.
You know? And our mutual friend Chase Tuning, I pay him for the conversations that we have. And there's a lot of times where I think like, Chase is like, he's my friend, he's my boy or whatnot. And then I was not going to I was not going to work with him again in 2023. But I was like, each and every time I talk to him, I get so much value out of this. And I was like, the price tag, it means nothing. To me, it's whatever, because the value that I'm getting is like far exceeds just holding on to that money that I have in my bank account. And for me, I came from like a lower middle class family, and my parents were divorced, and there was a lot, and I love both of my parents dearly, and both of them have now, are doing well. My mom's an entrepreneur now, my dad's in a very much more stable place, but it wasn't always like that growing up. And I always felt this feeling of insecurity because my parents would always be arguing about, like, it was always about money.
Isn't this so funny, by the way? Like, I'm insecure about my wealthy parents. You're insecure about your lower middle income parents. And I'm like, this is hilarious. You can literally be insecure about anything. It's like there's no perfect situation.
Nope.
And sorry.
No.
I'm so excited.
No, I do too, because that's the thing is, like, no matter where you start from, there's always going to be these insecurities, whether you come from the richest family in America,
or the most middle class family, or the poorest family.
Right.
You're gonna feel like, I got it wrong. And what if you were placed with the idea in your head, like, before you got here, to transcend that belief?
Mm.
Like, that is what I'm really sitting with, is like, what if you're just like supposed to feel that way so that you can transcend? that gives me a lot of peace for some reason.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's true, but it feels true and it makes me feel good. So I'm going to take that on as true.
Yeah. There's the concept of like inspiration or motivation or ideas and thoughts and things that they come to, I don't know, you may know, but there's like this idea that it comes to you, and whether or not you choose to grasp onto that thing is up to you. Otherwise it's going to like flow through you and out of you, and somebody else is going to attach to that. Right.
Yes.
That's why if you see something that is like, I've thought of this before, or like,
Yeah.
this is it. Like, you know, have you ever had that breakthrough of like, oh my gosh, and for me, I'm like, man, what have I missed? You know, like in my life, and right, you're shaking off that. So go ahead.
No, you can't miss anything. And yeah, there are things that you've thought about that have manifested into the world, but like, if you're thinking like that, you're missing what's currently happening. You're not being present to the creation of what is going on. The reason why you actually act on those ideas is because you're present to hear them and to see them. If you're saying to yourself, I thought of Uber in 2012, I was riding, it's like, dude, like that moment is over. Like you're living in a past that doesn't exist in this moment. So that's why I'm shaking my head at that idea of like, I thought of that, you know?
Yeah. Well, 'cause for me, there's a couple of moments that really I see something and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is so close to the vision that I have in my head to do this thing. And one of them, there's three things that really come to mind. And the first one is watching Yes Theory on YouTube.
Wow. Yeah, that's very much you. Like I could see you doing something like that.
It was watching Yes Theory on YouTube. It was watching Down to Earth with Zac Efron
Wow.
on Netflix.
Yeah, I could see you doing that too.
And it was seeing Cam Hanes do his run, lift, and shoot. And I'd never picked up a bow or a gun or anything in my life. I've never hunted. But it was this creating an experience around the podcast. It was, they come out and they spend a few days together and they work out and they climb Mount Pisgah and they record together. And watching Yes Theory and Down to Earth, it was almost like, and neither one of them are exactly what I've envisioned in my head.
Right.
But I had this concept called Dom Does World that's been in my head, and I've talked about it many times, and I'm still working through what that looks like. But it's exploring my own curiosity and like just really just documenting that and seeing. I'll give you an example. I went to Mexico right after I graduated high school, my senior year of high school, and I went on a mission trip there. And for the first time in my life, I was able to see these people who had literally nothing. And they were so happy and they were so fulfilled. And at that point in my life, I was going through a lot of family struggles, you know, relationship struggles, just felt very insecure about a lot of things in life. And I literally went from senior week, got back one day, and went to Mexico. And it was such like a radical change of perspective. And like, I went from literally getting wasted every night in Ocean City, Maryland, to now building a roof in the middle of the Mexican jungle.
Crazy.
And so there's those three things are like, okay, I didn't think like, man, they already did it, so I shouldn't do it. But it's more so like, hey, look what they've done. Use this as inspiration to create your own thing. Has there been that thing for you that you've seen or read or watched or listened to and have been like, this is it? Like, this is a sign for me to keep going, or a sign for me to start something or pivot into another direction?
Yeah, I think I looked at people, and I think finding people you admire is really important, and trying to figure out what it is exactly that you admire in them. So for me, I'd watch Joe Rogan and I'd be like, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, it was so clear. Be like, he is so able to express himself with words, and he is so clear in his communication, and he's so able to flow with anyone. It's like, I want that. I didn't know what it is. I could not say that 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, even maybe. But I knew there was something in him that drew me in. And so I think it's important for everyone to ask themselves, like, who do I admire? And why do I admire them? Because I wasn't admiring Joe Rogan for his martial arts. Like, I wasn't watching highlights of him in martial arts, and those are sick, and like he can kick the heavy bag really like crazy. But I think for me, what you're talking about of like the yes theory and Zach Efron's show, like those point to not like things that you quote could have done or could do or ideas that they still, but those are people you admire. And why do you admire them? Because they have something that is in you. So that's how I think about it.
I think it's also like the mission and the why behind what's being done.
Sure.
Because it's, for me, everything comes back to like my why. And I'm curious to hear if you've thought about this and if you have like a why statement or, what your purpose is. But it's really made me be more intentional about my time and think about the first thing that I think about is like, does doing this thing directly correlate to like my mission or my why? And even I had to make a couple calls yesterday for like things for like 2022 tax returns and like a gym membership that is still being charged for like back in Pennsylvania and like all these things that I kept putting off because I was like, this doesn't help me inspire and empower 100 million people. So it's like I have had to like check myself that okay, there are things sometimes that you have to do in life, but when you get to that state of like my mission and my why, my purpose is so like strong, where the first thing that I'm thinking of in my head is how can I serve today?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, this is hilarious. My dad has been telling me for the past month, when are you going to do your expenses? Do your expenses. And I'm like, does that relate to elevating human consciousness? But it's like, yes, it does. Because that is the thing in your way. That is what you're resisting, right? It's crazy, like how you're resisting doing your tax returns. I'm resisting doing my expenses because that's the place we're not free. Right? In the money world. And so, yeah, my mission is to elevate the consciousness of humanity. But it's like, how do you do that? You first elevate your consciousness so you can talk about your own issues with money, and then you can solve those, and then you can help other people. So I think that's been a really interesting thing for me of like, what if it's all helping inspire people? What if every time you resist something, that's helping inspire people? Because that resistance is actually the thing that you need to let go of, or you need to go through, which you let go of it by going through it. You go through it by letting go of it, and then you can help inspire other people along that journey as well.
So I know that you have really been diving in deeper into your relationship with God.
Yeah. And
I would love to hear kind of how and why that came about.
Absolutely. So on David Hawkins' scale, which is amazing, everyone should look up, if you got to this point in the episode, Map of Consciousness, David Hawkins.
I'll link you in the show notes.
It is incredible and helped explain so much. His belief is that when someone reaches 500, they don't have a choice but to know God. If you're feeling love, if your energetic field is love, then you will feel God. And that has been so true for me in that I basically calibrated every month of my life.
Whoa.
Every year of my life to be specific, but every month for the past 3 years or 4 years. And I see that when I hit 475, I started to quote unquote believe in God. I started to see God. I started to understand God. And I'm like, this is wild. So that's kind of why? Because I'm in the vicinity, my energetic field is within love. That's why I believe I've started to believe God. The practical things, like that's pretty out there for people to grasp and understand. I went to church. I started meditating. I started letting go of everything that I was resisting and I was holding back, and I was looking at myself, and I was having friends, mirrors of my own behavior, say like, "Oh, when you do this, what does this mean? What does it say about you?" Um, and I would let the things go that I was holding on to so tightly. Like, no, my family's wealthy, and like I can't tell anyone this because that's gonna doesn't matter. Like, what if you viewed yourself from like a third person perspective of like, this is a fictional video game character? That's kind of how I'm looking at my life. And I'm like, it's so much more freeing because I'm like, this is not actually me, like at all. There's no Danny Miranda. There's just a consciousness that's witnessing me say these things. So, um, I, I went to church. I meditated 4 years before going to church. Like I really felt and understood myself at a deeper level, and then understood like the world around me. I don't know what's going on, bro, but I just know that I feel God, and I'm so grateful for it, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, and I understand the the perfectness of every moment. That's really it. That's like, to me, that's what God represents like, it is perfect, like genuinely perfect. How do I know? Because it's here. Like, the opposite is nothingness. And the fact that we can be mirrors for each other and experience this in this moment is like, that's perfect. So that's a long way of saying that's how I came to God.
How has coming to God helped elevate other areas of your life, like relationships, business, fitness, health, all the likes?
Yeah. There's no resistance. There's no resistance. Like, or I should say, there's much less resistance. There's resistance for doing my expenses, but it's like, that's worth looking into. Why have I not let that go? Why have I not done that? But in so many areas of my life, it's almost, this is actually the biggest thing. It's that in every room I go in, I feel like I'm supposed to be there. You know that feeling like when you go to a party, or you've been to a party and you're like, I don't know anyone. I don't know if do I belong here? You know that feeling?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty relatable feeling for most people. That feeling is completely gone.
Wow.
And I know if I'm there, I'm supposed to talk to someone. And when I say I'm there, I'm not talking about I'm at a party. I'm in life. I'm with people. I'm in an elevator. I'm supposed to be there. And there is nothing that person can say that could hurt me. Because I just want the best for them. I want love for them. I'm coming from a great place. If I say, how are you doing? And they say, I'm okay. And I say, I'm incredible. They ask me how I'm doing. I say, I'm incredible. And then I'm like, why are you doing, like, what's going on? And they're like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, that doesn't affect me. That has nothing to do with me. Right? And so I think that the feeling of not belonging is completely gone, because I know I belong in every moment by virtue of just the very fact that my consciousness is directed at that point.
What does love mean to you? It's something that I talk about a lot. It's something you talk about a lot. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
It's almost like a buzzword nowadays. Sure. But what does love mean to you, and what does it feel like?
Yeah. It feels like the energy flowing from the heart. It is the connection between, if talking about in the external, it's the connection between two people, or a person and a thing, or a person and activity. It is when two becomes one. Right? Like, a lot of people are like, yeah, I have these thoughts in my head, and but then there's the me that's like watching the thoughts, and it's like, what if that just becomes one? Like, and how does that feel? And how does it feel to be fully connected to oneself? And how does it feel? And what's interesting about love is, like, sometimes, like, the best way to get to love is to look at the pain, look at the resistance, look at the thing that you're not wanting to love, And it's like, why not? What's going on there? I often think about also like the mother who holds the child who's screaming with compassion. Like that's love too, right? Think about what the mother does. Then I think about like the father holding the child to the higher standard. That's love too. Like there's so many different ways love expresses itself, but I would say at the core of it, it is when two things become one. And it's why laughing feels so good with someone because in that moment you are both connecting over the story or the idea, and in that moment you are becoming one. So everyone knows it at a deep level that's what we're here to do, that like that's what we're seeking. And I think people just have different methods for trying to get to that. Like some people are trying to get to love through drinking alcohol, some people are trying to get to love through fitness, some people are trying to get to love through meditating, some people are trying to get to love through podcasting. Like people have different methods for doing it. Those are all activities, but it's like it's a really important thing to understand. It's like, how are you feeling love? How are you connecting with love? And is this the highest expression of what is true?
How are you trying to spread more love in 2024?
To be present to the creation of life, to understand, I don't know what is going to unfold, how it's going to unfold, but I do know I can be present. I was in an Uber on the way here. Guy was playing Rich Dad, Poor Dad. To love in that situation meant to like be interested and be curious about like what got him started on this path. And I wasn't doing this as a way to get anything or to be anything, just to like validate like this dude's on the right path. He could be driving Uber and playing whatever music he liked. He could be driving Uber and listen to nothing. He could be driving Uber, but he's using that time to invest in himself. Like, how can I love this man and appreciate what he's doing so that he could feel like I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path. Like, I think, you know, to love is to be present to what's happening and to approach it with curiosity and interest and connection and really want the best for other human beings. And if you're coming from that place, it's very difficult to feel like you're doing the quote unquote wrong thing. Because even when you make a misstep and it's quote unquote wrong, you're coming from a good place. And I can accept that for myself. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do you remember your Uber driver's name?
No.
Interesting.
I didn't ask him his name.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just curious. You just had your dream podcast guest on, Mike Posner.
Yes.
Congrats, by the way. That was, I've not finished listening to it yet, but it's so good. And I know that your dream, your goal is to sell out Madison Square Garden with the live show. So when you hit these goals, like you had your dream guest on, and I know one day you're going to sell out Madison Square Garden and do a live show. When you hit these milestones, these things that you're working towards, it's like, then what? What is the next thing?
Yeah. I don't know. And that's the fun of it. I don't know what the next thing is, and I'm not staking my self-worth on interviewing Mike Posner. It didn't feel better about myself because I interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk. I didn't feel like I won the Super Bowl. I felt like this is the most incredible thing ever, and I'm so grateful I got the chance to experience it in this body and mind. But I don't feel like, okay, what am I gonna do next? Or like I view it like, okay, I got in that Uber. It's like, what am I gonna do next? Like, I just made this, I just had an amazing interaction with this dude. This dude made my day and I made his day, and we both enjoyed each other's company. And it's like, what's gonna happen next? I don't know, but I can't wait to see. I think, yeah, I think when you're with the flow of life, like when you're in love with life, it doesn't matter what's next. The fact that your consciousness is there means that you get the chance to experience it, and you getting the chance to experience it is the win in and of itself.
Right.
Imagine a world in which the podcast or doing a podcast at Madison Square Garden had the same significance as riding around an Uber.
Wow.
Right? or interviewing Mike Posner is the same significance as the Uber driver. Like, obviously, that's not going to be the case because I have so much attachment to my own depression in those times of like, wow, this music really helped me. And I was listening to Mike Posner and I don't have any attachment to the Uber driver anyway. But what if I could feel just as great at the end of both of those interactions? Genuinely. And I genuinely do. So it's like, to me, that's winning. And to me, it's like, what's next? It's like, what do you, after that, I don't know. We're just going to have a podcast and hopefully we'll end this interaction the same way I left the Uber interaction. Right? So that's how I'm living life. And it seems to be working out so far.
Are you a big goal setter?
Not really, because I don't know the greatest thing that's going to happen to me. Like, I just know I have to be present to the creation of what's happening. I didn't know that one of my favorite memories from 2023 was going to be on the last day of the year running a marathon. I had no idea. I just had to be present to what happened and what came up when that offer was presented to me. Just had to say like, oh, I don't want to do that. Why is my mind saying that? Why is my mind saying I don't want to do that? Because it's going to be hard, because I haven't trained for it. What if I get injured? What if I get hurt? My mom will say this is a silly idea for me to do. Like, all that's going on in my head. And then I'm like, what if I resist that? What if I let that go? Is a better way to say, what if I let that go? What's the truth? Oh, I want to run this marathon. Oh, this will actually be something that's really cool to test myself. My body, mind, let's do it. So I only was able to run that marathon on December 31st, 2023, because I was present to the creation of what was happening. There was no goal of running a marathon that day, but life presented that circumstance, and I was present enough to accept it.
What did you learn on that day?
I learned that we lie to ourselves so often about what we can and can't do. I learned that it is remarkable what happens when you have a shared mission with someone. There's something about running a marathon alone. There's also something about running a marathon with someone that's like, you get the opportunity to experience in that moment like a transcendent experience. So like I learned that, we're capable of far more than we think, especially when we do it with people who inspire us, with people who push us forward. And it's like so many of our beliefs that we believe are things that our parents instilled in us. And some of those serve us and some of those don't. And to recognize those is to transcend.
That's powerful. I gotta ask, man. It's something I ask all my guests before we wrap up here. And one, I just want to say thank you. This is the first of many great conversations. But I wanted to ask, when you hear the words pure ambition, they're the two words that make up this podcast, Pure Ambition Podcast. What immediately comes to mind? What do they mean to you? And how do they apply to your daily life?
Pure ambition. What comes to mind for me is a truthfulness about the journey that you're on.
Mhm.
Like, a lot of times when we have ambition in the world, or a lot of times when I had ambition in the past, it was based on what I thought other people might like. And that ambition was not pure. That ambition was impure by virtue of the fact that I was basing my self-worth on what other people thought of me. And where I was going was based on their interpretation of what success looked like. Pure ambition to me represents, this is for you. This is an internal game. And I want to sell out Madison Square Garden because this is about, I was growing up and I was going to Knicks games and I was building my world and I was like, they play at Madison Square Garden. What's that look like for me? So pure ambition to me is doing something and doing things that are in alignment with you at the truest level, because there's a feeling that that's the purest pursuit. So that's what comes to mind.
That is beautiful. That is powerful. Dude, I want to thank you for just being who you are and being someone who I can look to for inspiration and motivation, and know that when I don't feel like doing the thing, Danny's doing the thing. So I got to get up and do it. So thank you for having such a strong mission and a strong why, and for making such an impact on my life. People want to check out all of your stuff. They want to connect with you. They want to enroll in your coaching. Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, it's Hey Danny Miranda on Twitter and the Danny Miranda Podcast. If you want more conversations similar to this where I'm in Dom's seat. So thank you so much for having me. This was a really fun experience, and I'm really grateful for you and to be your friend.
Beautiful, man. I love you, bro.
I love you too.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. I wanted to give you all a heads up too that I launched a free community on the Upspace app where you can join, ask me questions, connect with like-minded individuals, follow my 4-week running and strength training program that has some dedicated mobility sessions in there as well, so that we can all optimize our health and fitness together. So if you're interested, head over to the App Store, download the Upspace app, and join the Pure Ambition community today. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.